In this episode, I will be interviewing Charlie Dolan. Charlie and his brother built DSQ Technology, a vertical market software company in the waste and water space. Prior to that, they both built and sold a business in the same industry before. However, a tech-enabled service industry business versus now it's a software company. So we'll hear about the differences and the journey. My name is Alexej and I help SaaS founders scale. We drop an episode like that once a week where we interview SaaS founders from all over the world. And so in this episode, I'm super excited because we'll learn about pricing, product feature prioritization, M&A, and of course also how to scale a business without raising capital. So enough of me rambling, let's dive into the episode. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming to the spot. Super excited.
Yeah, happy to be here. Good use to get the camera on and have a good conversation on a rainy day here in Pittsburgh. So excited to be here.
Absolutely. Awesome. Cool. So to kick off, why don't you give us a small introduction about your journey and also what Discovery app does?
Sure. Yeah. Started in the waste industry my freshman year of college. I went to Villanova University over in Philadelphia. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and live here now with my wife and 4 kids. And when I started undergrad, I was looking for an option to get me out of having to finish undergrad, which meant starting a company. And so started a waste and recycling business back in Pittsburgh with my brother and another co-founder. I was 19 at the time. That was between my freshman and sophomore years. And that was called Sequoia Waste Solutions. And the spin there was actually on the tail end of Waste Management, the biggest company in the space, purchasing what was called a waste broker called Oakleaf for some huge amount of money, 450 million maybe. And trying to replicate that, but with a tech-enabled approach. And so Sequoia was going to be, a little bit leaner, a little bit sharper on data analytics. And that's where I was bringing in that skill set of mine. And we grew that from 2011 to 2022 and sold that to a public company in the space. And during that time, we actually built a lot of different internal tools to help Sequoia become scalable. And we spun out that technology into the company that we're doing today, which is called DSQ Technology. And we've got multiple products. One is Discovery, which is a software application for generally large waste managers. They're called brokers like Sequoia. We have a sensor product line called Pioneer, which is really interesting. It does predictive scheduling for all of these containers throughout the country. And then our third product is called Hauler Software, which is basically an operating system for people that are actually doing the waste pickups with roll-off trucks, open top containers, junk removal, those kinds of things. And now we're starting to expand into more areas to try and create some synergies throughout all those. And today our 35 employees, US based. Most of us are in Pittsburgh, but some scattered throughout other states in the country. And, starting to take a good approach towards this waste market.
Wow. Sounds fascinating. And sounds like you have a lot of stuff going on. So let's maybe unpack everything, bit by bit. Yeah. Let's maybe go back to your first business, the Sequoia one. How did you grow that? And I guess what were the lessons from scaling that to then, applying that and these lessons to a software company today?
Yeah, sure. So our target customer at Sequoia was somebody who had multiple buildings. If they had geographic diversity, that was even better because that meant that they probably had more than one waste hauler, and we could be that central single point of contact for all that complexity and sort of wrap that up for them. And it's tough to get people to care about talking about their garbage bill. So that was a knock on the door kind of activity, a lot of cold calling. We used to have cold call hours. I remember way back in the day where everybody from the accountants to customer service, when you're a team of 10, everybody's got to get on board. So that was a labor intensive process. And we started to, have a lot of success in doing that. We actually kind of had too much success early on with just continual 20, 30% month over month growth without the right systems behind it, which really almost kind of killed us in 2013, so two years in. But fortunately, we're able to work our way around that. Following that, though, we kind of got from 2011 to 2022, we went through a couple different like startup cycles, and then you saw the start of that zero interest rate phenomenon era. And so when we didn't elect to take outside funding to kind of staff up a huge sales army to continue that, we shifted towards channel partners, referrals type deals of our existing client base, a little bit more enterprise and going upstream. And that had, I think, mixed results. It wasn't perfect by any means, but that was a conscientious decision of ours as we were shifting more towards building technology products than staffing up a fleet of salespeople and just the overhead that comes with.
Makes sense. And in terms of when you sold the business, how did it happen? Were you saying to yourself, look, enough is enough, I want to do a new challenge? Or you were actually already thinking, hey, we built some really cool tech here, we want to focus on that, let's sell the rest? How did it happen?
Yeah, so we kind of were using the business as a way to learn the industry. And so we were at that point about 10 years, maybe 9.5 in, when we started to think about selling it. And the growth was consistent, but it wasn't huge at that point. And so we were looking at it of how much more is there to learn about the industry if we hold on to this, or is it better for us to take a monetization event and regain some of our focus back on these other products and services that we think have a lot more runway in them. And so that's kind of what that determination was just balancing those two things of time, energy, focus, and an opportunity to learn more. And so we were actually getting more information, more nuance about the industry, things that we could understand to then build into the software to provide more value from a lot of our customers that were on there. And there were only a handful of them, but we wanted to look at that as a way to grow. And we also had a lot of people that were prospects saying, I'd love to sign up, but you have a competitive business. I'd love to sign up for the software, but you have a competitive business with this Sequoia. So I'm a little hesitant on doing that. And so that really kicked us over the edge of, well, we should, divest of that and fully go, 2 feet in on the software side.
Interesting. And so the acquirer, they didn't insist on having that software piece as part of the transaction, right? Or were you saying, look, we wouldn't be selling if we were to have to sell the software piece as well, right?
Yeah, when we took it to the market, we were pretty clear about that. We actually retained the entire team with us. What we sold was the company, the customers, the vendor contracts, and so, it was an asset sale in that regard. But we did, very clearly up front say, DSQ Technology is a separate entity, and we're going to maintain that. And we're going to continue to grow in this different opposite way. And we're interested in, selling the Sequoia Waste Solutions as it was with that professional services and tech enablement.
And then you mentioned it's you and your brother, right? You completely bootstrapped. You obviously studied management information systems, I can see. I guess, like, how much technical expertise did you have to hire in versus how much did you do it with your brother, for example?
Yeah. My brother and I like firing ourselves from jobs would be my overarching answer to that. I'd say we're okay at a lot of things and we're not great at most of them, or not great at any of them. And so, my technical capability, I serve as CEO and CTO of the company now, is okay, but I'm not getting in there and slinging out hundreds of thousands of lines of code at this point. And so I think that's kind of been, just looking back over the last 12, 13 years, sort of the story of how we've done this is bring in talent that we can trust and give them the freedom to go build. And that includes the technical talent that we've brought in as well. We've got a great team of committed individuals from really across the country at this point who are contributing to that daily. And we've built a really, really powerful program at automating what is a very obscure part of the work process here. And I'm excited to keep seeing that team develop, and they're working on stuff that I comprehend, but I wouldn't be able to contribute to at the technical level that they're working already.
And when it comes to, let's say, you mentioned you have not only one product, but actually like a suite of products. for the waste management industry. How did you decide which product to launch? Was it by talking to existing clients and then prioritizing, I don't know, like your best clients and what they wanted? Or how did you go about that product feature prioritization?
Yeah, so the initial product that we did is discovery, and that's again for Sequoia to handle its transactions. And Sequoia sat at an interesting part of the market. There were companies that generate waste, and there's companies that are hauling it away. And Sequoia sat in the middle. So it was quite literally the telephone game. If an invoice was generated by Waste Management, Sequoia had to figure out what that invoice was, audit it to a contract. They then had to turn that around and give it to the waste generator as a new invoice. And then those things had to stay in sync. And so, that was a fundamental thing of just the business that we had to build at first. And then what we observed was there were opportunities to, either create new products or services as we watched all those transactions go by. One of which was this compactor monitor that we came up with. That's a energy meter that goes inside of a very large waste bin. And we use machine learning to actually read how hard the motor is working. We put a cell phone on that. We send it up to our processing platform. And then we do predictions to determine when is that container going to be full. And it's a specific, machine learning AI algorithm for that container, because every single business generates waste differently. And, that to us was evident from processing all those invoices. You see, well, most of these containers aren't full and most of them are picked up on a schedule. So here's a great opportunity to go find a way to reduce the cost by reducing the number of pickups. And, we think we can build that. Now, turns out hardware is a lot harder than you think before you're in hardware. So, would I do it again, knowing what I know now? Probably, but maybe not. And, we've just kind of repeated that as we go. And that's coming from what really just feels like a fire hose of information from all these different transactions that are going on and spotting, unmet parts of the market that we can deliver an answer for.
Got it. Can you disclose the rough number of clients you have right now?
Yeah, our client base right now is approaching about 100 total companies, but a lot of those are like large channel and enterprise kind of software providers. I would describe them as, and so they in turn are processing north of 100 million a year in spend volume across all the invoices that we're either taking in on their behalf, sending out on their behalf, and that kind of activity.
Yeah, so a big part of your software is actually you processing a lot of payment volume as well, right? In the hundreds of millions, basically.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with Plaid and how that works for logging into Venmo, discoveries, we've built something similar. We call them rovers, and what those do is they go into all of your, if you're somebody with 100 locations or more, you might have 100 different waste vendors. And so we've built these rovers that go into all of your vendor portals and get all that information for you on an ongoing basis. And that starts a full automated workflow to go through to auditing that back to a contract, turning that account payable vendor invoice into an accounts receivable customer invoice, and starting to add in embedded payments and that kind of stuff on top of that whole workflow.
Interesting. Yeah. So how do you think about the industry overall? I guess it's quite large, but it's also super fragmented. How do you stand out, I guess?
Yeah, for a long time, it's been considered like a $50 or $70 billion industry. The exact number, I think, is probably a little bit made up, and that's just North American. And so what we've done to date is we are pretty strategic about who we reach out to and want to talk to. And we are really aggressive once we identify that this is going to be a good partnership for us. And so we've been not really investing in a ton of sales and marketing. We don't do a ton of public promotion. That's changing a little bit with our newest product that's actually kind of going downstream from these enterprise type deals down to SMB, haulers that might only have 3 to 5 drivers or trucks. And so, we've kind of done proactive outreach on our own, kind of quietly through LinkedIn or trade shows and stuff like that, and touch upon some of these really key areas that we can deliver value in. And that's intentional because a lot of the companies that we're selling to, we can list in a single spreadsheet. There's only about 200 to 300 real targets for some of our original products and services, and that's is now expanding a lot. But there's only so many companies that are processing high volumes of garbage bills. So
okay, makes sense. So basically, a lot of account-based marketing, right? And you just being let's say patient but targeted. And it's interesting you're saying you're going kind of like downward in terms of pricing and products. Usually, SaaS companies start maybe with a smaller ticket product and then trying to actually go upward. Why did you decide to go, towards the, let's say, I guess, more fragmented and smaller space in your industry? Mm-hmm. Is it just because from a total addressable market, it's much, much bigger?
It's a little bit of that. I'd say it's more about the opportunity to provide a really great experience. So if you imagine a waste broker might have commercial properties that they are performing service for, and that commercial property has a property manager. If they want to order a dumpster because maybe there was a flood or somebody's moving out, it takes about 5 communications for that property manager to have that message get to a dispatcher, and then have that person route a truck and have the container delivered. And then that same process repeats for the invoice flow, the payment flow. And so what we noticed and have been, just really trying to find an opportunity to fix is how do we get that property manager tools, information, the ability to buy faster and in a more automated way. And so for us, that means this hauler software that we've announced at the beginning of this year, building up a huge base of network providers using that software, and then eventually being able to offer those network providers new business. Hey, we have customers over here generating waste on Discovery, and you as the hauler, if you're interested, these are different opportunities you can take to go perform service that are overlapped and really highly pre-qualified, leads, you could almost call them, in your area. We know the location, we know the material type, we know the in many ways you could almost say like the credit worthiness of the customer. And if this is an opportunity you'd like to take, here's a way to do that. And that's a different way for us to compete than what everybody's trying to do right now of increase Google ad spend or Facebook spend, and people are always looking for a different way to get their business out there. And so for us to be able to create that network effect, we've got to go downstream and we've got to offer services to the underlying part of the network that we weren't touching before, which is all these different haulers throughout the country. And the nature of us doing that is going to make our other products a lot better and our other services a lot better. There's going to be a lot more satisfied customers at Discovery when they can, quite literally open an app or a portal and understand there's haulers in my area. Here's what they're going to price. That price will be transparently shown to them and start to do a transaction there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to you, and it's so fascinating because obviously I grew up in Germany and then, spent a lot of time in England. And most of these, waste and recycling services, etc., they are either still government owned or they have been, let's say, privatized by, let's say, 1 or 2 companies, which were private, but then probably were bought by an infrastructure fund or like another private equity fund, right? I guess in the US, because there's so many different states, every state has probably a different type of regulation. Obviously, state doesn't provide so many services to, let's say, the people out there, right? Yeah. But it's still interesting that there's so many players. Like, why did nobody? And of course, there are probably funds rolling up a bunch of players in the space, but like, why are there still so many players? How is that possible?
Yeah. It's definitely unique to maybe America, but my read on that is there has been consolidation. There's been consolidation in this sort of third-party management space that we were in with Sequoia, and there's also been consolidation on the underlying, hauling area as well. And you've seen that with Waste Management, Republic, GFL. All of those companies have grown through acquisition, and they continue to grow through acquisition. But I think it's kind of a once a waste hauler, always a waste hauler. The people that they're selling, that Waste Management is buying the companies from, the individuals selling their companies, they get back into it after 3, 5, 7 years because they enjoy it. It's fun. They go start a new hauler in a different town. They build it up to a certain revenue number, and then they offload it to one of the public companies. And the public companies are fine with that. They need the deal flow. So it's really become part of the process that the fragmentation is there almost for a reason. I guess over a 20 to 40 year horizon, I don't know if that means it does sort of consolidate into just a handful of people or companies, but it's kind of baked into the process right now. Somebody builds that company, they offload it to waste management, they work, on something else for 3 to 5 years, and then they get the itch and they do it again.
But then how do they get their customers? Just by like grinding and calling up people and just because they love it?
Same deal. Yeah. And, waste is a world where I think customers are willing to switch after a while. And, I've not scaled a operating waste company myself. So I don't know if I could speak extremely into the detail on it, but I know a lot of people who have, and I know that that's just, it's in their nature. That's what they love doing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. All right, so let's maybe talk back about, again, about software and your space. And it looks to me that there is a lot of that vertical market software aggregation happening as well. A bunch of private equity funds and tech funds buying up vertical market software providers. You've probably been approached by Consolidation software already. What's your take on that? Would you sell it, or would you want to just this time grow it to, I don't know, like $1 billion revenue business?
Yeah, well, we get a lot of activity, and that's even where I think we sit pretty far below the public perception. Very few people know about us, but we must be on some list because we do get inbound. And I think it's good for the vertical software market that there is that kind of deal flow occurring. That's not really for us. That's not really our goals. We want to build something that we might hold forever. And part of that comes from, I think, Brian and I's background, my brother and business partner's background, where our grandparents were entrepreneurs, parents were entrepreneurs, and have built their own companies. Our grandfather's company's still around today, some 65 years later, and is a staple here in Pittsburgh. And we would be happy to hold on to this forever. And to us, that means operating it in a disciplined fashion, not taking in a huge lump sum of money that then puts you on a timer for somebody else's needs. Trying to grow sustainably, trying to maintain a great culture inside the company. And yeah, we do have pretty aspirational revenue goals, and we want to make this thing massive. But we're going to do it in a way that we think is going to be best for our customers, best for the market. And quite frankly, that takes time. I mean, I think if we had taken in a huge sum of money in the past, that would have forced us to take different decisions than we've done today. And we're happy about where we've gotten to. And I kind of joke with anybody that I do take, an intro call from, a warm lead or connection. I always tell them, well, the first dollar is going to be the hardest for us to take, because that's fundamentally different than anything we've ever done, which is not take money. And we're excited about where we're going, and we intend to do that in a way that maintains our independence. If the right thing were to pop up, we'd consider it, but we're happy where we are.
I guess being on such a long-term path, and also being, quite confident in your position in your industry, etc. How do you deal with distractions? Because I can imagine sometimes you think, okay, well, we're doing this the whole time. We've the previous business being in the same industry, left, right, and center. There's some sexy AI company popping up. How do you stay so focused, and how do you deal with distractions?
Yeah, I would say that's like an hourly problem. I wouldn't even say a daily problem. It might even be like a multiple time an hour problem. And I think that it's even become harder with there are actually good business opportunities on LinkedIn and Twitter/X, but it's also very easy to get distracted in those places and start to see, another company go by and, oh, what's that? That's interesting. And so, I wouldn't say we're perfect at it, but it absolutely is something that takes discipline. And I think we have an internal rubric of things, whether it's a software feature or a business opportunity, that we try and run things through to make sure it's a fit. And that weeds out a lot of things. And I think we've just gotten used to saying no for so long that we've become pretty comfortable doing that.
Got it. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't know why it happened.
Right.
Let's maybe repeat that, because it was, just the final bit. 1 second. Sorry, just For some reason, somebody started calling.
Do you think it got caught on my end of the recording if my headphones are in?
Did you not hear it?
I hear it, but it's in my head. It's not coming through the mic. Like I have earphones in.
Okay. I don't know.
Well, you can do it again.
But yeah, it was a good answer though. Let me just one second. Sorry, just 1 second. I just tell her. Sorry for that. Yeah, let me just ask you that question again because it was a really good answer. So I'm pissed about that call. Okay.
It was about saying no, right?
It's about saying no. Yeah. So basically, Charlie. Amazing. You're obviously super confident in the industry, lots of experience in the industry. Your previous business was in the similar industry. How do you stay so focused and how do you deal with distractions? Because obviously there are so many sexy AI companies left, right, and center. There are probably lots of like unsexy companies you could acquire in your space as well. Yeah, how do you stay focused?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think it's a daily problem. It's maybe even more granular than that. I think things are popping up all the time. There's probably the temptation to spend your efforts on a new company, a new article, a new something every hour. And I think we're not perfect at it, but it just takes discipline. We have an internal rubric on what we try and qualify things for, whether that's a software feature, a new position that we want to, hire for, or a business that we might want to acquire, or new area, a new product that we want to go into. And we try and make sure that those things fit a customer need, align with our current interests, and drive towards some future, 10-year goals that we have. And I think it's also becoming a little bit more challenging because like Twitter, X, LinkedIn, those are really great opportunities for either expanding our network or meeting new customers and prospects. And they're also great, areas to get distracted. So it is a muscle, and I think a skill that, takes continual refinement and just, we've said no for a long time. I think we've gotten pretty comfortable doing that. And, we keep in the back of our mind that you're saying no so that you can say yes to the right things. Otherwise, you're too overburdened when that really great opportunity does pop up.
Mm-hmm. And so far, you haven't acquired anybody else.
We did actually. We acquired that hauler software company in the fourth quarter of last year. We acquired it off Gazdecki's acquire.com. And that was one where, we just kind of trolled the forums every now and then looking for something, and that came up and we said, oh, this is a perfect fit. We think it would, as I mentioned earlier, have a great synergy with these other users in our other products. And, it was fun. It was getting us into an SMB area rather than this enterprise area that we've been in. And so we were successful at bringing that on board and have since, been pouring time and effort into it, adding a bunch of things, self-sign up, new features. We're going to get into embedded finance in the second half of this year and help those people not only send invoices and take payments, but start to unlock, ramp style issuing credit cards and credit facilities and stuff. So yeah, we've done one acquisition to date. So
amazing. How did you think about that when you said, okay, we can acquire them or we could build it ourselves? What was the thinking process there?
Yeah, totally. Just timed market. This was a proven application with about a dozen real customers throughout the country. And so, definitely check the box on product market fit. It was relatively small, which was good for us because we have a network of people that we can go sell this into. It came from a team of people that had worked in the business before and really understood it. So it was architected well. And there was also overlap in the technical stack. So the backend that it was built with is very similar, almost identical to what we use in our other applications. And so it was, if there was a perfect fit, that would be about it.
That's amazing. So far, it looks like you've had a very easy time growing this business. Tell us a bit more about the challenges you faced in the last, few years.
I think the hardest part after saying no, like we were talking about earlier, is in making sure that you've got a process and a delegation mechanism to let the company grow and get yourself out of the middle. That's one of the things I've had the biggest trouble with, is sort of handing over control on what those things are and empowering somebody to do that. And then, switching from sort of doing it yourself to then, I would say the second phase is working alongside somebody else doing it, where you're still kind of taking an active role, to then totally getting out of it and saying, look, here's where we need to get to. Let me know how I can help you get there. And here's, and then do regular check-ins in that way, but no longer necessarily being in the day-to-day of it. And that growth, I think, has been, something that I mentioned earlier. My brother and I have always tried to fire ourselves from all these different roles that we're doing. Because it's probably the biggest limiter to the company's success is, what's my bandwidth, his bandwidth, other senior leaders' bandwidth tied up with, and how can we empower other people on the team to do that for us. And I think that's, probably the toughest thing to crack, at least for me personally, because that gives us the opportunity to say yes to those things, to work on those key initiatives that do drive the business forward.
Makes sense. From a let's say management slash alignment and accountability perspective, do you follow some sort of framework like OKRs, or what kind of framework do you follow?
Yeah, in the second half of last year, we started doing a rollout of EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, and it's been great. We just got set with our rocks for the upcoming quarter, and that was a huge process of the team going through that. And it's really great. I think a lot of those end up being, we have other systems that we're using in other parts of the company, whether it's a software team or elsewhere. And a lot of them do they start to look similar once you kind of get underneath them. They're ways of allocating, your human labor, your capital, and cadences, and how can we get a 10-year goal down to a 5-year goal, down to a 3, down to a 1, down to a 90-day. And so it's actually really helpful once you start to see multiple of them. You're like, okay, well, here's the real fundamental thing that needs to occur behind all the marketing. And so we have been using that. It's been really helpful. It definitely helps drive conversations in a way that people feel like there is that common goal. There is an understanding of what we're trying to do. And so we've been really happy with it. We're probably not doing it perfectly, but it's been awesome for us.
Yeah. But curious to hear you said EOS, because I actually follow the EOS system with the agency, and then the OKR system with the acquired brand of ours. But with you having basically you and your brother, like, who is the visionary, who is the integrator? Are you both visionaries, and then you actually have, 1 or 2 integrators? How do you do that with 2 leaders?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I'd say I'm maybe a little bit more on the visionary side than he is. But his office is right there. We probably see each other, if not for every work day, dozens of times a week otherwise. And so, we're pretty tight at the hip about that. And that's not to say we're always in perfect agreement, but it is a healthy combativeness of trying to get to where the business needs to be. And so I'd say we generally share most of those roles, and in a way that is, no one's 100% on maybe any of those buckets. And maybe that's something that we need to consider changing. But, for now, it's been our biggest benefit of it is trying to get what are his and I's ideas of where we're going to, disseminate it into the rest of the company in a way that is digestible. Because otherwise it would be, he or I pontificating in a speech in front of everybody for a while with a slide deck that we came up with that, could land or couldn't land. And that's just maybe one example of stuff that's happened in the past that I'm recalling, but it's been really helpful to break those things down into a way that can be understood by the rest of the team.
Got it. Cool. So in terms of critical lessons you can share with other SaaS founders, what would they be?
Critical lessons. Well, if you go read through on our website, we have a little bit of our founding story. I would say you can probably invest too much in back of house software and ways to get things done that your business is going to need once you scale, but you definitely need to. Don't overinvest in the software that you need and in the processes that you need, but you have to absolutely invest something in them because, I mentioned in 2013 with our Sequoia company, we were growing so fast, we quite literally, almost kind of blew up because of it. And that was a lack of internal process, lack of internal controls, a lack of ability to, generate reports and create what are the standards that business needed to succeed. And I would think there's a lot of great tools out there for software companies to take in. I'm blanking on the name right now, but I know Craft Ventures and David Sachs, he invested in a company that really helps try and draw some of those key performance indicators forward for businesses. If there's a mixture of those that you can deploy and use, even if you're paying an extra bit for it, I'd absolutely use them, because you need to make sure that you have those fundamentals nailed down. You need to make sure that, you're making enough margin on this to be successful on your sales. And you don't want to get caught in a situation where you're running low on money, you don't necessarily have a lot of traction going on, and you don't know necessarily how to fix it because you don't have any data to drive a better decision.
Fair enough. All right, so let's jump into the quick fire questions. What's a book recommendation for SaaS owners?
Yeah, so this one's fun. So I like cars, so does my brother. And that's kind of inherited from our father. And so we've been reading, actually, as a group of brothers, a book called Why We Drive. And it is about, I would describe it as kind of getting to the fundamental need of people to want to do something exciting. And I think it's a good sort of link for software companies, or just entrepreneurs in general, of, there's a reason and there's an itch you're trying to scratch as to why you're taking this professional course throughout your life. And it's a great book on just, sort of the unbridled exhilaration that you can get from, in that case, driving on roads. I'm sure there's other things that people take interest from as well. And it kind of touches at that fundamental human level of why we even take risks, or why we do things that might be otherwise, not the easiest path.
Interesting. I'll check it out. Who is a business leader or entrepreneur you admire?
Ooh, that's changed over time. And some of those people that I would mention, end up having sort of a political slant to them these days. But I'll go with it anyway. Showing my kids that we have self-landing rockets is probably one of the most amazing things that, like, I can comprehend that we're capable of doing. And so it's, absolutely a bit of a throwaway answer right now, but like I've one son, he's turning 7, and describing to him, like, look, here's there was a movie that came out in 2019, and it was all this original footage of the Apollo missions, and specifically the moon landing. And they took all that film, they upscaled it, and it's in, beautiful 16:9 4K original audio recordings, upgraded as well. And then to show, and he loves that movie, and to show that compared to some of the things that we're able to observe today of, 2 Falcon rockets landing next to each other. And then comparing that back with, some of the things that you can learn just through, like, Mark Rober's YouTube channel and that kind of stuff is, I think, really exciting for kids these days. And I think, just awesome to watch, and kind of hypes you up when you watch all these people who work at SpaceX screaming in excitement when these things separate and it actually works. Like, there's so much work that's going into that. And I think that's one of the only sort of companies out there that's working on something that's maybe so fundamentally transformational for our ability to transport ourselves and to work on big problems.
Interesting. Yeah. It's an interesting debate, because obviously Elon Musk is so public about it as well, right? Versus maybe some of the other guys like Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, etc. They're kind of trying to achieve the same thing to some extent, right? But obviously not with as much publicity and not with as much money probably as well.
Sure.
But yeah, totally agree. Like, super visionary, like, inspirational story there. Yeah. What's a SaaS tool you use that not many other people use?
We just rolled one out with an affiliate program that we liked. It's called Tolt, T-O-L-T. And, it met a need that we had, which is, how do we create a self-hosted page where people can create their own affiliate program and start to, it nails all the basics, right? Get their link. And it's not groundbreaking, I guess, in the sense of, like, the first time you find Stripe or the first time that you identify, like, Plaid, and that's a problem that you have, might be a little bit more foundational. But, we had a problem where we wanted to roll something out in pretty quick succession before a trade show coming up here in a couple of weeks. We were able to go through the whole process. They've been really great to work with our head of marketing and RevOps engineer, and got it out really quickly there. So we've enjoyed that one, and there's a bunch of those, I'm sure, but that one's been great for us too.
Cool. And I guess, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I'll stick to a business one, maybe, so there's some application for others. So our grandfather had a saying where he felt like his job was to, with the people that he was trying to lead and work with, say you can paint any picture you want. You just have to stay inside the lines of the canvas and stay within the frame. And I think about that a lot. I think it's a really great metaphor for the tug and pull between delegation and allowing freedom, but then also trying to set an overarching direction. And he's more successful than I'll probably ever be. So it worked for him. And so, that's something that my brother and I try and take into our work, where we are setting, here's the outline of this picture that we're trying to draw as a company. And now it's your job to use that brush however you'd feel inside that canvas, but make sure you stay inside the border.
Fair enough. Awesome. All right. And then final question. Who do you want to see on this podcast?
Ooh, there are a lot of great people. Let's see, from a SaaS perspective, I think it'd be really interesting to understand, especially with how the market has changed in terms of financing, some of the team members behind Pipe, which, if you're familiar with, does non-dilutive, non-personal guarantee financing for companies in a way that's basically receivables factoring. And so I thought that was one of the most amazing products. We haven't used it, but I've recommended that to startups that I invest with when they need it. And I just think those types of alternative financing models are really interesting, and it'd be really cool to see some of their backstory and how they came up with that and how that's worked out.
Cool. I've tried to reach out to them. And then, look, I mean, it was amazing. How can people find you, like, if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, company website is dsqtechnology.com. I'm on Twitter and X for cdolan92. And I'm on LinkedIn a little bit less often, but I would be happy to help anybody who's either thinking about coming into the waste world or thinks there could be an overlap. Those Twitter and LinkedIn.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. To finish off this episode, a little promotion from our end. Neoptima is an award-winning marketing agency for B2B SaaS businesses. We work with companies backed by YC, Sequoia, Carlyle, Lightspeed Ventures, Northzone, and many other top VCs and PE investors. We work with venture-backed, private equity-owned, and bootstrapped SaaS businesses all around the world. Reach out to us and book a call in the description below so we can optimize your growth journey. If you have a fellow founder, if you have a team member, if you are part of a Slack group, Telegram, or WhatsApp group with other founders that could get value from this episode, please share this episode with them. We want to help as many founders as possible to scale their business. Thank you for joining us on this journey. See you in the next episode.